To go. Okay.
Okay. So my name is Olga Angulo. I am an inclusion specialist at PUC Nueva Esperanza Charter Academy.
Okay. My name is Viridiana Estrada. I am an RSP SDC teacher in middle school, 6th grade through 8th grade for ELA and math.
So today we are sharing our mini lesson plan, and we are doing it with 6th graders. And our specific topic and subject is math, and our topic is the coordinate plane. So our central focus of the lesson and the learning segment is students will be able to use a graph, template, and ruler to draw and label a color-coded horizontal x-axis and vertical y-axis with the appropriate scale, origin, and quadrants to later work in partners to create an anchor chart for their notebooks. So we were able to choose this learning target and segment because me and Viridiana are very familiar with the coordinate plane. We've done it with our students before, and it seems to work very well. We used culturally responsive types of teaching, so students can become more accustomed to the content. So that went very well, and Viri would want to add something.
Yeah, I think that being able to learn this basic skill of identifying, a coordinate plane and its different components is very important for 7th grade and 8th grade math instruction because they're able to access higher content, knowing this basic skill and having this foundational knowledge.
Right. So moving on, our key content standard is CCSS Math Content 6 and CC6, which is understand a rational number as a point on the number line. Extend number line diagrams and coordinate axis familiars from previous grades to represent points on the number line and in the plane with negative number coordinates. We were able to pick this one because, as you can see, it talks about 5th grade and 4th grade standards where they were introduced to the coordinate plane, but not necessarily, really dig deep in the content as they do in 6th grade. And our other standard is find and position integers and other rational numbers on a horizontal or vertical number line diagram. Find and position pairs of integers and other rational numbers on the coordinate plane. This is pretty much what. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. I think this is very important to note because a lot of our students are very used to just seeing the horizontal number line, but it takes a little bit of a challenge for them to recognize that it's basically the same thing, even if it changes orientation to a vertical number line. And especially knowing that that's going to affect them and being able to read a number line like that talks about depth or sea level or even temperature that applies to like real world context.
Yes. Adding to that, it was they know what a number line is, but sometimes they don't really know what it's used for, or they could ask questions like, when am I ever going to use this? And you can use a number line as an example of various things, such as a temperature. Why does it go below zero? Just like Vidi said, how can they know, or what's the knowledge that they would know that it's below zero, because that's hitting below negative. So that's something very important that they have to know. That's why this standard really can relate to that. Moving on, we have our ELD content standard by proficiency level. So our first standard is ELD 6A1, exchanging information and ideas with others through oral collaborative discussions on a range of social and academic topics. So we were able to pick this standard because throughout our lesson, you'll see that in some areas, students will be able to work in either partners or collaborate with each other. So this is where they will give in feedback and demonstrate how much they know of the content using the English language. Our next ELD standard is selecting and applying varied and precise vocabulary and language structures to effectively convey ideas. So throughout the lesson, they'll come across words that relate to the coordinate plane and the content. So this is where they really have to know the structure and what the word means specifically. so that they can create ideas and use them effectively throughout the lesson. So would you like to add anything?
No, good.
Okay, so specific plan supports to address the learning goal. So one thing we use for visual color coding, for the x-axis as green and the y-axis as pink, just something that they can distinguish the x and the y-axis. I was able to relate to this as an inclusion specialist because my students, they use their favorite colors to really memorize the x and y axis. So if I have them do the x axis like purple, or the pink, or the y axis pink or green, whatever color they can relate to, that's something that they'll easily quickly connect to. Because if I ask them which one's the x axis, they'll be like, oh, it's the green one because it's my favorite color. So then on the side of the paper where the coordinate plane is, they can just highlight a green color and then point out that the green is the y-axis and the pink is the x-axis. This was the next one was visual auditory video on coordinates in real life, Earth coordinates. Something that has to do with the video is I had my students do iReady lessons to introduce the coordinate plane. So that was something that got them going. A visual, a textile, and a treasure map. So just something that really gives them an example of, guiding them through the coordinate plane and the quadrants. Kinesthetic activities, turning the classroom into a coordinate plane as a summative assessment. Varying product-based learning. So one teacher that does this, another sixth grade teacher at our school, is that they had cleared the whole classroom and just duct tape the x and the y axis and really use it as as a playing field for battleship. So that was very cool. So each quadrant had a team. So there was 4 teams because there's 4 quadrants, and each student had to just really get really involved, and each one of them had a part because they all had to pick a point. So that was pretty cool to see. Another kinesthetic is the check for understanding, either thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle, by their lap, to encourage participation without insecurities. And as I said again, playing battleship as an incentive for students who do well when creating an anchor chart.
So then, in order to establish our learning goal, we talked about something that is very introductory for this lesson, which would be just to identify the x and y coordinate of an ordered pair on a coordinate plane by drawing and labeling the appropriate axis and scale, which this is where color coding is very important because we know that the coordinate plane has a lot of components, and being able to use a varying degree of colors will help to distinguish all those components. And then to make sure that our students are practicing their are accessing the ELD standards, we focus on a series of vocabulary words, which is the vertical, horizontal, x-axis, y-axis, origin, and quadrant, which is vocabulary that we would try to implement at the beginning of the lesson, use frequently, and expect our students to use as well whenever they have conversations or discussions during the collaborative part of the lesson. Apart from that, we also have 3 series of assessments. We have the formal formative, where students are just being asked to draw a number line just to show what they know. This is something that is very familiar to them, and so it creates a sense of accessing background knowledge and a sense of being in a safe space where they can show what they know. The formal formative is more defined by creating an anchor chart, which they would use to correctly label a coordinate graph and to locate an ordered pair as an example, apart from any warm-ups or dunas that they could have. And then the summative product-based project that we would have at the end of this unit, if it was part of the whole unit, it would be to create an amusement park visual by plotting varying attractions using ordered pairs to demonstrate an understanding of coordinate planes. And apart from that, we also made sure that the grouping should be both whole group and in pairs. Not only to give direct instruction, but also to make sure that there is a collaborative sense of learning in the lesson. Okay. And finally, for the teaching model, we wanted to make sure oops, sorry. For the teaching model, I think there's varying degrees of instruction, both from the teacher but from also each other. So there's direct explicit instruction during the I do portion of the lesson. There's a discussion that is being implemented by the teachers as well, and cooperative learning is more of them working together, but
Right, like
also yeah, but
you do
also
part.
exactly, but also being curious about the whole process and just asking questions is very welcoming during the lesson. Do you want to add something, or you're good?
No, I think yeah, I think you hit the topics good.
Okay. And so then after that, we began just plotting out the whole basic lesson. The lesson introduction would take around 10 minutes where we are activating their prior knowledge. And so this is done by cooking them by using realia, which would be a treasure map. So that's something that they could always have in their, as they recall anything that has to do with coordinate planes, it is an actual object that they could have as an image. And this is just to conceptualize coordinates and the fact that there are always going to be two values given when we're trying to locate the treasure, which takes account into the x, y, and the x and the y coordinate. Um, we have a series of check for understanding questions that kind of ask them to think about why a coordinate plane even exists, which is just combining a vertical and a horizontal number line. Um, we're ensuring that any introductions or any instructions are given both verbally and written on the board. So for students who might learn differently or they might have different, I guess, skills. Uh, Everything is very timed and structured. That way, students are able to know exactly what they're supposed to do without having any problem. Making sure that they're able to complete their work, whether it is by themselves or together. And then we have a more series of focus questions of checks for understanding that ask them to inquire about the topic that they're learning about and asks them about what they should be learning as the lesson goes on.
Right.
Mhm.
And our environment is mostly like either one teach, one support, or we both teach. So when with Mateo and myself, when she's displaying either a graph or something on the overhead to show to the kids, I will verbally support her by asking students probing questions or just conferencing with them individually to check for understanding.
Mhm. Okay. So part of the reason why at the beginning of the introduction we just labeled it as T1 and T2 was that I think because this is a collaborative lesson and we are teaching together, we would just pick the type of role that we would be comfortable with at that time. I think it also depends on the learning environment and the class that you have and the students. So I think it just depends on what each teacher feels comfortable with and the task that they would choose to complete this lesson.
Right. And then for our final lesson closing, uh, students will be filling out a survey in Google Docs, asking students what they learned, what part of the lesson was their favorite or least favorite, and their state of mind, either a thumbs up, middle, or down, just identifying what they need more support in.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is also in part of what makes this lesson a UDL lesson plan is that feedback from learners and how their feedback can help you become a better instructor. Not only for the future, but in just even teaching that type of content. Whether it was
Right.
received with a positive attitude, whether the activity actually made sense to the students, helps guide your instruction for the next day and the next year, I guess, for whatever students that you're working with. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.